I watched Trump's announcements today in the Oval Office, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. We'll start with the craziest thing he said, which is that we've lost wars since World War II because we have become wokey. Not woke, wokey. Let's get into the meat of it. It was about an hour and a half long. He mentioned Biden 15 times, Obama 4 times, and people around him mentioned Biden an additional 6 times. That's 21 total Biden mentions, just so we're clear. Right at the beginning, he gets presented with an American flag, which he thinks is a blanket, probably because it wasn't folded into a triangle, but was instead folded into a square. And he looks at it and with all seriousness goes, "Oh, I could probably use that at night." He mistook an American flag for a blanket. So he signs an executive order to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War because, again, we don't lose wars when we're the Department of War and we're not wokey, again, whatever that means. Just a little history lesson for you. The Department of War previously was actually just the Department of the Army. There was also the Department of the Navy and things like that. In 1947, those all got combined into the National Military Alliance. And then in 1949, that got changed to the Department of Defense. You then have Pete Hegseth come in later and say that the Department of Defense was formed in 1947. He just doesn't know his own history to know it was 1949. Maybe he was drunk. So yeah, in addition to changing the name of the department, he says that they're not going to spend much money doing that because they know how to rebrand properly, and they'll just wait until letterhead runs out. That's literally the example he gave. Till letterhead runs out, and then they'll replace it with the new stuff. They then ask him, do you think that Congress will need to approve this? And he says there's a lot of questions about whether or not Congress would need to approve something like this. He thinks that EOs are just laws. He thinks it's legislation. Just a side note, there are the same number of trans people in the U.S. as there are people in the U.S. military, so just throwing that out there, you do with it what you want. Pete says something at one point, and he plugs his own book. It was hilarious. He just up there plugs his own book. And they're also claiming that every police department, this is a claim that's been made before, every police department, every fire department, every rescue team, every branch of the military all has record recruitment going on right now. That's what they're claiming. Oh, and he's still claiming that he won 7 wars or ended 7 wars. Can't list them because it was only 6, and some of those are made up, and most of them he had no involvement in. But again, whatever. He claims again that $17 trillion of investment is coming into the U.S. as a direct result of his winning the election and his tariff policy, and says that you'll notice the big change in a couple years when all the factories are built. Who wants to work in a factory, honestly? He's now claiming it's been 120 days, so 4 months since someone crossed the border illegally, and said that just a year ago there were millions of people crossing and you could tell they were bad people just by looking at them. That, my friends, is called racism, just pure and simple. This one was hilarious. He finally admits that he's willing to go to a restaurant in DC, something he didn't do during his entire first administration or so far during this one. These people are betas. They are so afraid of cities and anyone who is different from them. It just terrifies them. So he claims that they're getting thousands of people out of the country each month who are here illegally. He will later in the speech say that it's 25 million people who came in under Biden. So if we just do some math, thousands, not tens of thousands, so we'll say 9,000 people every single month, it would only take them to get the 25 million out that he says 231 years, or for example, 58 separate 4-year presidencies in order to drain the people that he claimed came in one presidency. Remember that boat he blew up? Well, he says that the bags that were on it, he doesn't confirm what was in them or anything, but says that those bags represent hundreds of thousands of dead Americans. Someone asks him about trans people being banned from owning guns, and he skips over that question because it's not about the military, he says, whatever that means. Back to the drugs, even though the numbers from every reputable source that I can find shows that on average in a year, anywhere from 80 to 110,000 people might die from drug overdoses, he's now claiming that number is 350,000 people per year. He thinks every 3 years we lose 1 million people from drug overdoses. Just his thought. I mean, he doesn't give any proof or any statistics behind it. He just thinks 350,000 a year. He's introducing some guy, Adam, and he's clearly looking at the wrong person the whole time. He's looking at Sebastian Gorka while he's introducing this other guy, and then someone points over to the guy that he's supposed to be looking at, and he looks over at him. Hilarious. This man does not recognize who his own cabinet members are. Tina Peters, you remember the woman in my state of Colorado who's in jail for election interference? He says that she's a great woman. The only thing she was doing was uncovering election fraud. That's what she was doing, plain and simple. That was it. And for some reason, she's in jail, but he can't do anything about it because it's a state charge. So he says that they should just let her go, just let her out. On the note of Colorado, he says that Colorado went to all mail-in voting. I live in Colorado. I voted in Colorado last year. In fact, I voted in Colorado last year in person with my wife. So not really sure what that means. He's clearly very hurt by people saying that he died or was dying because he goes on this long rant saying that Biden would go for a year without saying anything. And then when he would come back, they would just ask him simple questions like, what type of ice cream do you like? And he would just say vanilla. And then they'd be like, that's the end of the conference. And he's like, I skipped one day of work. And then he was like, no, actually, I was here working the whole time. I skipped one day of work and then everyone just assumes I'm dead. He was clearly very, very hurt by that. He brings up this weird idea again of allowing companies to build their own electric plants when they build their AI factories. I don't know what that means, but he says that without doing that, we would be 20 years away from even being involved in AI. So even though we're one of the leaders in AI, he's saying that had they not done the thing that they haven't even started doing yet, that he's just now allowing them to start doing, that we would be 20 years away from getting involved in AI. You know, that makes sense. He claims just out of nowhere that gas will soon be $2 a gallon everywhere. You might remember that he's previously claimed that it is $1.98, $1.97 in multiple different states, even though it never has been below $2 at all under his administration. But he says now it's going to go down to $2 across the board. That's just going to be the national average. You might remember that he promised all of electricity, all energy prices would be down 50% in 12 months. You know, we're getting along and still not going down. But if you just wait, it's going to be $2 a gallon everywhere. And he says that's a massive tax cut to go with his no tax on tips and his no tax on overtime and no tax on Social Security, which, again, just aren't things that they're actually doing. He says all Democrats are deranged and crazy and they just have TDS. And he says that TDS is a disease of weak people and stupid people. Direct quote. These are things that he's still claiming Democrats want. They want men to play in women's sports and men being able to use women's bathroom, and they want open borders. Just all Democrats want all of those things. He was asked about the jobs report where it was said that tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs have been lost. I think the number was 68,000, which is weird because apparently they're building all of these factories, which is in and of itself a manufacturing job that would then be filled by more manufacturing jobs. But he says the reason that it is because they haven't put out the corrections yet, and also because the interest rates were too high. That's why we're losing manufacturing jobs. And for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, he says that he would like to put new leadership in the position so that the numbers will be more reliable. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. He goes on some long rant about New York and Mayor Adams and all that and says that Zoran is a communist, but we'll get used to a communist. And then he says that Mayor Adams got caught up in a scam by the Biden administration. You know, that whole thing where he was being charged with stuff? It was just a scam by the Biden administration. So he's talking about fixing up all of DC. He's like, we're going to whitewash the marble. We're going to fix all the medians and the tiles on the bridges and stuff. And then he says that he's very good at grass and that they're going to regrass all of the parks in DC. And then he talks about like some grass that's been growing for 4 generations. I don't know if he knows that grass dies every year and then it comes back. And so it's every year is a new. So I guess I don't know. I don't know what he's talking about at all. The term is resod. You're going to he just says multiple times, we're going to regrass every single park in DC. Just regrass them all. He goes into his weird thing about families going out to dinner in DC again because now it's totally safe, and claims again that there is zero crime in DC. He says people are saying that it's an 87% reduction, which is weird because it's just some statistic that he used before for carjackings in particular, not crime in general, but just makes this claim that it's actually 100% reduction in crime. There is zero crime in DC. He gets asked about the vaccine mandate getting taken away in Florida, and he straight up says, and this is hilarious for RFK Jr., that basically vaccines are safe and effective, and especially ones like polio, we know they work, and people should be taking them because they work. I mean, at least he said one thing that made sense and was good in this whole speech. He won't tell us what city it is, but he's decided what city the National Guard is going to get sent into next. And then he starts randomly talking about Portland, which he says is not going to be the city. But he says people in Portland are paid terrorists to disrupt the city. How do we know that? Look at their signs, their professional signs. And then he points to the G20 sign that's next to him and says they're like that, and that's not made in a basement. They're professional signs, so they must be paid terrorists. 10%ers, how's it going? I didn't know he would be speaking today. I actually just went to True Social and then there was something about signing executive orders. So I was like, let me just go see if there's like actual video around this. And then it just said Trump makes announcements, September 5th. So I was like, okay, let's see what this is. And it was an hour and a half long. So I was like, okay, so this is a speech. He's going to say some dumb stuff. And, it was more of the same, but we had some new fun information in there from him. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's pretty crazy, just the contradictions, especially I love the math parts personally, but the fact that it would take 231 years to get them out at the fastest rate that he says that they're getting them out. And then obviously there's a bunch of other lies that I don't have the time to get into because we're already at 10 minutes now, which is crazy. But thank you for sticking around for 10 minutes, and I do hope you enjoyed it.